For nearly 2,000 years, one question has captivated believers, scholars, and skeptics alike. What is the image of the beast? Throughout history, countless answers have been proposed. Some have imagined an ancient idol. Others have envisioned a future world ruler. Today, as artificial intelligence, humanoid robotics, biotechnology, and digital identity systems rapidly advance, many are asking whether modern technology could somehow play a role in one of the Bible's most mysterious prophecies. But before we follow today's headlines, before we consider emerging technologies or explore the latest theories, there is a more important question we must answer first. What does Scripture actually say? That is the purpose of this documentary. Not to predict the future, not to sensationalize prophecy, and not to force current events into the pages of the Bible. Instead, we will begin where every serious investigation should begin, with the biblical text itself. Together, we will examine what Revelation clearly reveals, what Daniel may contribute to the discussion, how the theme of counterfeit worship unfolds throughout Scripture, what modern technology is truly capable of, and why the question of counterfeit life has become increasingly relevant in our generation. Along the way, we will distinguish between what the Bible states with certainty, what history can help us understand, and where thoughtful investigation must remain just that, an investigation. Because the greatest question surrounding the image of the beast is not simply what it is, but what it represents. Ultimately, this is not a story about technology. It is a story about worship, about truth and deception, about allegiance, and about humanity's final choice between the Creator and a counterfeit. So before we speculate about tomorrow, let's begin where Scripture begins. And together, let's investigate what the Bible actually says. What does Scripture definitively say about the image of the beast? For centuries, the image of the beast has captured the imagination of believers, scholars, and skeptics alike. Countless theories have emerged, ranging from ancient idols to artificial intelligence. But before considering any interpretation, we must begin with a more important question. What does the Bible actually say? Surprisingly, Scripture tells us less about how the image functions than it does about what it accomplishes. In the book of Revelation, John describes a second beast, often called the false prophet, who performs astonishing signs and deceives the inhabitants of the earth. He commands the world to construct an image in honor of the first beast. Then, in one of the Bible's most mysterious passages, the image is given breath so that it can speak. More than that, it possesses the authority to condemn those who refuse to worship it. The text does not explain the mechanism behind this event. It simply presents it as a reality that will confront the world during the final period of human history. But the image does not stand alone. It becomes part of a much larger system. Revelation tells us that every person, rich and poor, free and slave, is required to receive a mark in order to buy or sell. Within that system, the image becomes the dividing line between two allegiances. One path leads to worship of the beast. The other leads to faithfulness to Jesus Christ. Scripture leaves no room for neutrality. The Bible also speaks with remarkable clarity about the consequences of that decision. An angel warns that anyone who worships the beast and its image and receives its mark will experience the full measure of God's judgment. Later, Revelation describes those who bear the mark as being afflicted with painful sores even before the final judgment unfolds. In striking contrast, those who refuse to worship the image are portrayed very differently. John sees them standing victorious beside what appears to be a sea of glass, holding harps given to them by God. Others, including those who were martyred because they would not worship the beast or receive its mark, are raised to life and reign with Christ during his millennial kingdom. These scenes reveal something essential. The image of the beast is not presented merely as a political symbol or a religious artifact. It becomes the focal point of humanity's final rebellion against God, a visible expression of ultimate allegiance. And that brings us to perhaps the most important observation of all. While countless books and documentaries attempt to explain what the image is, the Bible places its greatest emphasis elsewhere. It emphasizes who is worshipped. The central issue is not the technology, the appearance, or even the method by which the image speaks. The central issue is worship. Every person is ultimately faced with the same question: who will receive your allegiance? Before we explore theories about artificial intelligence, robotics, or other possibilities, we must first understand the one truth Scripture makes unmistakably clear. The image of the beast is the center of a worldwide call to worship something other than the living God. Everything else begins there. The Bible is unmistakably clear about the role of the image. It becomes the center of worldwide worship, the dividing line between allegiance to Christ and allegiance to the beast, and the catalyst for persecution unlike anything the world has seen. But that clarity leads to another question, one that has fascinated students of prophecy for centuries. What is the image of the beast? This is where we must be careful. Many documentaries and books begin with theories. Scripture begins with facts. And when we examine the biblical text closely, we discover something surprising. John tells us what the image does, but he says very little about what the image actually is. That silence has led to centuries of debate. Some have imagined an animated statue. Others have proposed advanced technology, holograms, androids, artificial intelligence, or even something we have yet to invent. But before considering any of those possibilities, we must first ask what John's original audience would have understood. In the first century, images of emperors stood throughout the Roman Empire as symbols of political authority and religious devotion. Citizens were expected to honor Caesar, and in many places, emperor worship became an expression of loyalty to the state. Many biblical scholars therefore understand the image of the beast as the culmination of that pattern, a final cult image that demands worship of a world ruler in place of God. Others see connections reaching even further back into biblical history. King Nebuchadnezzar erected a massive golden image on the plain of Dura and commanded every nation to bow before it. Centuries later, Antiochus IV Epiphanes defiled the temple in Jerusalem with an idolatrous act that became known as the Abomination of Desolation. Jesus himself pointed his disciples back to Daniel's prophecy, warning that a similar event would occur in the future. Taken together, these events reveal a recurring biblical pattern. Throughout history, human rulers have repeatedly sought what belongs to God alone: worship. The image described in Revelation is not an isolated event. It is the final expression of humanity's oldest rebellion, replacing the Creator with something created. Exactly how that image will appear remains one of prophecy's unanswered questions. But its purpose is not. Its purpose is to unite the world in worship of the beast and to challenge every person with the same ultimate decision. Will we worship the Creator or his counterfeit? What powers are attributed to the image? Having asked what the image is, we now arrive at another important question. What can the image actually do? Once again, the answer may surprise us. Revelation tells us very little. The Bible attributes only two specific abilities to the image. First, it is given the ability to speak. Second, it becomes the instrument through which those who refuse to worship the beast are condemned to death. Beyond these two actions, Scripture says nothing about additional powers. That silence is significant. It reminds us not to build elaborate conclusions where God has chosen to give only a brief description. Yet there is another detail that is often overlooked. John does not say the image possesses life or power on its own. Instead, he tells us that the false prophet is given authority to give breath to the image so that it can speak. That wording is remarkably important. Throughout Revelation 13, authority is never presented as self-generated. The dragon gives authority to the beast. The beast exercises authority that has been permitted to him. The false prophet receives authority to perform signs and wonders. And now, even the image receives only what has been granted to it. Nothing in this chapter possesses independent power. Everything operates through delegated authority. Whether the image is miraculously animated or whether its breath represents an extraordinary act of deception has been debated for centuries. Some scholars understand the passage literally, believing the image will somehow be supernaturally empowered to speak. Others suggest the language describes persuasive influence, the ability to compel, deceive, and demand worship through overwhelming rhetoric or convincing displays. Scripture does not resolve that question. John simply records what he witnessed, leaving the precise mechanism unexplained. But whatever the method, the purpose is unmistakable. The image becomes the visible instrument through which worship is enforced. Refusing to bow before it is no longer merely an act of personal conviction. It becomes a capital offense. The image stands at the center of a system where political authority, economic control, religious devotion, and persecution converge into a single demand: worship the beast. Yet even here, Revelation reminds us of a truth that is easy to miss. The image is never portrayed as an equal rival to God. Its authority is limited. Its power is delegated. Its time is temporary. And every action it takes unfolds only within the boundaries God allows. That distinction is crucial. The image of the beast may appear powerful, but Revelation never presents evil as sovereign. Only God possesses authority that is eternal, absolute, and underived. And that realization leads us to perhaps the most intriguing question of all. If Scripture tells us what the image does, but remains almost silent about how it does it, why?